Welcome back to our next edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. I am Dan Siegel, joined as always by my co-host, Ben Anderson. Today, we also have a guest from our own CBB Review Network, Ariel Puterman. And today we are previewing the South region, the third of our four regional previews. Guys, how's it going? I mean, I think the first thing I'll throw to you, Ben, this is the region of our Virginia Cavaliers, so very exciting stuff, right?
To be honest, I don't know if you meant that sarcastically or not, but I was pretty happy with the draw that we got. Out of all the 13 and 5 and 12 seed combos in the pod, this one probably gives us the best chance to get to the Sweet 16. So I'm pretty happy about that.
No, I actually agree. Ariel, first impressions of this bracket?
I think it's gonna be a fun bracket in terms of those like high seed to low seed kind of upset potential. I think this region has the most possible upsets. So just looking at that, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of good teams in this region, including a national champion from 2 years ago in Baylor.
Yeah, a national champion from 3 or 4 years ago, I guess at this point in Virginia. I always to point that out. But
2 of the last 3 national champions.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into it. We're going to start with not one of the previous national champions, but somebody who a lot of people think could be, and that is number 1 Alabama, who will be playing against the 16 seeded either Southeast Missouri or Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I don't know. Do you guys have anything to say here, or we'll move on?
Okay.
Ben, by the way, I did get a chance to check out that Texas A&M Corpus Christi campus on Google Maps. Absolutely
wild, isn't it? Crazy.
But yeah, we're going to move on to number 8 Maryland and number 9 West Virginia. Honestly, guys, I like West Virginia here. I think both teams have lost some games down the stretch, but West Virginia just overall, they have an impressive resume. 12 losses in the Big Ten for Maryland. I don't know if that does it for me, and I like the way West Virginia does, I think, on defense with their heavy ball pressure, their help defense, their good rebounding. I don't think either of these teams blow me away with potential to beat Alabama, but in this 8-9 matchup, I like West Virginia. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I'll add 2 more points. One, away record compared to home record. Maryland was 2-9 away from home this season. Obviously, March Madness isn't at home, so I think they're going to really struggle away from home as they've done all season. West Virginia was 3-8, so I'm not saying it's a massive jump, but definitely better. 2, just looking at the coaching matchup, Bob Huggins against Kevin Willard. Willard just never made it past the round of 32. He's had a lot of teams that could have done that. Bob Huggins, one of the most, actually now he is the most active. He has the most wins of all time of an active coach now that Boeheim retired. So I think if you just look at the coaches, I think it's a clear there's a clear difference between the two, and so that's why I'm going to go with West Virginia.
Yep, I concur with both of you. West Virginia loses to teams like Kansas and Texas, and that's why they have 12 losses. Maryland loses to like Nebraska and Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. And next up, we got the 5-12 matchup. This one is pretty interesting. Again, not blown away by either this specific 5 team or this specific 12 seed, but it's San Diego State against Charleston. Ben, I'll start with you. What do you think? What's your pick here?
I don't think Charleston's that good. For a 30-win team, they haven't beaten much of anyone. I guess they beat Virginia Tech, and that was a good game, but that was de facto home. I believe they counted it as home, if I'm not mistaken, because it was in the Charleston Classic. And they lost to North Carolina. They really just didn't do much in the CAA. They didn't beat Hofstra in the tournament because Hofstra lost before they played them. I just think San Diego State has the best unit out there in their defense, so I'm going to go with the Aztecs here.
Yeah, history says not to take the Mountain West. I believe they're 0-8 all time in NCAA tournaments, but San Diego State's a good team, and I think they just have a little bit of an upper hand over Charleston. They've got a few guys who have played in the tournament before. They know the pressure. They know the atmosphere. And Matt Bradley's probably the best player on this court, so I think they get it done.
I actually do love Charleston. It's not even as much a case of me loving Charleston as much as me not liking San Diego State. The Aztecs, for what it's worth, only have 1 double-digit scorer. They're not a team that's going to light you up offensively. And their defense is good. But they also have one of the worst teams in the country against ISOs, which is, I feel like, a very specific stat that's important, especially in March. San Diego State is 261st against ISOs. Charleston, by the way, is 8th. So pretty significant difference right there. Charleston actually has about five double-digit scorers that could go to work, mostly guards on the smaller side, which could be problematic. But I'm going to go with Charleston. Not significant, though, because I think the winner of this game, whoever it is, makes it to the Sweet 16, especially if it is number 4 Virginia. And number 4 Virginia is playing number 13 Furman. I'm going to start with Ben because you are the UVA guy. You are the UVA student of this pod. So thoughts?
Yeah, so basically Virginia actually was playing pretty well in the 4 games before the Duke game. The shots just weren't falling in the ACC championship game, but I was still impressed by the defense that they played. It looked a lot better than they had been in the middle of the season, especially towards the end where you had those close games against Louisville and Notre Dame and lost to Boston College. I do worry a little bit about inside scoring. Besides Caden Shedrick, who tends to be foul prone, we don't have a lot of depth up front, especially the Ben Vanderplas injury. And Furman is number 1 in the country in 2-point percentage shooting, even though they're a pretty small team. That comes from mostly their guards. UVA has also struggled with guarding really good scoring options in the backcourt in recent times. Jairus Lyles comes to mind against UMBC or at UMBC when we lost there. So if Mike Bothwell, I think, is going to be the X factor here. I think if he has a good game, then Furman wins. But if Kihei and Reese Beekman are able to shut him down, then I like the Hoos to advance to the round of 32.
Yeah, definitely. I was just kind of racking my brain. I was just wondering how Virginia's done recently as a 4 seed, if any of you guys remember.
Nah, I can think of anything.
That was a cheap shot, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think losing Ben Vanderplas, who was actually on the other side of that upset when Ohio beat Virginia, I think losing him is going to hurt them a lot more than they think. We've already seen a little bit during the ACC tournament. And yeah, just a little bit of inconsistency from the guard play with Clark and Reese Beekman. Obviously, a lot of experience, and they've played in this tournament 3-4 times now. So that'll definitely help. But I think Furman, I love their energy. They have a great coach, and I think that they pull off the upset here.
I think to what you said about not having Vanderplas and it hurting them, I think that is true. And that will catch up to them at some point. And I just don't think it's specifically in this game. I think in this game, having the big interior defenders and specifically Shedrick, the shot blocker at the rim, will be huge as long as he could stay out of foul trouble. I like Virginia in this game. Furman does not blow me away, honestly, in the scheme of the other 13 seeds. I think if they get there, going to the Sweet 16 against Alabama, not that they would have much of a shot at really anyway, but specifically without Vanderplas, that I think that'll really hurt them. But in this specific matchup, I think Shedrick and Caffaro will be more important either way. But let's move on to the bottom side of this bracket. So then we have 6-seeded Creighton against 11-seeded NC State. We got another ACC team here. And Ariel, what do you think? I honestly have a very strong opinion about this, but I'll let you guys go first. So, Ariel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I feel like something you're going to say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but NC State should not be in this game. They had one quad one win. I mean, that's unacceptable. They should have been treated the same way as UNC, and they didn't. I think maybe because their guards are so electric that they wanted to see guys like Terquavion Smith and Jarkel Joyner in March just because they're such electric players. But they shouldn't be here. Aside from that point, I think Creighton's really underrated. They dropped a lot when Kalkbrenner was injured,
Yes.
or he had mono, so I don't know if that's an injury, but when he was out earlier this season, they lost a bunch of games. That kind of hurt their seeding, but they looked a lot better at the end of the season. Kalkbrenner's amazing. Then they just got a lot of really solid guys, and Kaluma, Nemhard, Baylor Shireman from deep. So I think they're a very complete team, and they're going to play higher than a 6 seed. And NC State, this is kind of payback for them even being in the tournament, is them going up against a team that was underseeded. So I'm going to take Creighton here.
So I'm going to disagree with your first point. I think that NC State actually is where they should be. It's not the Wolfpack's fault that one of their quad 2 wins, which is a home win against Miami, is better than a ton of teams' quad 1 wins, if we're being honest. Like, which one's better? Is it a road win at Wisconsin, or is it, a home win versus Miami? I would take the home win versus Miami, even though it's technically quad 2. That being said, I really like Creighton in this matchup. I think Kalkbrenner can neutralize DJ Burns. And I'm really interested to see the matchup of Trey Alexander and Terquavion Smith. Terquavion Smith has been pretty inefficient for all of his scoring prowess. He's been pretty inefficient in ACC play, and I don't think that's particularly effective against a team of Creighton's caliber. So I like the Blue Jays to advance.
Yeah, I agree on that quad system point that Ben brought up, that separating the game into quads, I feel like we've done a little bit too much of that, and the analysis goes a little bit deeper than that. But I'm in agreement with both of you in taking Creighton. Ben, you talked about Kalkbrenner neutralizing DJ Burns on the NC State offensive side of the court. Same thing with Creighton. I think Kalkbrenner will really exploit DJ Burns. Great offensive player, not the best defensive player. I think that's where he'll have his way. So all three of us got Creighton. Who will they be matching up against? It'll be either 3-seeded Baylor or 14-seeded UC Santa Barbara. Now, I'm not outright picking UC Santa Barbara, but honestly, a little dangerous. First off, Baylor has been slumping as of late. I don't think Baylor is a team we thought they were a month ago, 2 months ago. And UC Santa Barbara is a high-powered offensive team. They have more size than what's typical out of that conference, the Big West. Miles Norris is a 6'10 forward. He can stretch the floor. And Baylor is the second best offense, according to Torvik. But their defense has a tendency to let teams give it right back. What if Baylor goes a little bit cold? I don't know. Am I crazy for this?
No, I don't think you're crazy, but I disagree in your assessment of how to beat Baylor. I think that you actually need a better defense and offense to handle the Bears. I think you can sort of pressure their guards, or at least neutralize maybe 2 out of 3. Like, if you're going to take away Keontae George and Langston Love and maybe LJ Cryer and let out Adam Flagler do his thing, I don't think you can beat the Bears by outscoring them, which is why I would have preferred another matchup of a 14 seed if I were to pick Baylor, because I do think they're a vulnerable 3 seed. I just don't like this particular matchup in my mind. So I'm going to take Baylor pretty comfortably here.
Yeah, I agree with picking Baylor. I think the only way to beat Baylor is if you have equal talent to them. We thought Baylor was going to make a big run last year. UNC was just super talented, and they hit at the right time. That's the only way they were able to take them down. We saw a bunch of teams. Iowa State, not necessarily, but Otzelberger just knows how to coach against Scott Drew. But just in general with these Baylor teams, especially with their guards, you just need guys who can pair well with them and kind of go toe-to-toe with them. And obviously UCSB doesn't have that, but that's not to say that there are other teams in that region that can't match up with them.
All right. And then we got Missouri and Utah State. That one is a 7 versus a 10. Either one of you can take this one away first.
I'll go ahead. I cannot wait for this game. This is one of my favorite games in the first round of the tournament, in my opinion. This is going to be high. Take the over. I'm already telling you this right now. Take the over. They're high scoring. Utah State's deadly from beyond the arc. Missouri is fast paced as all hell. I mean, like, you have a lot of fun stuff going for you. The difference in my mind of this game is that if Missouri is able to force turnovers, I think that's how you beat Utah State, and that happens to be something they're very good at defensively. They'll give up a lot of points, but they'll also turn you over a lot. And I think the best defense against Utah State is not allowing a shot to begin with, because I think if they shoot it, it's more than likely going to go in. So I'm going to take the Tigers here. I think they have that defining factor.
Yeah, as a Jayhawk, it's always hard for me to root for the Tigers. And I'm not saying I'm going to root for them, but I do think they're going to win. And I just think they just have so much depth, so much shooting. Kobe Brown, we saw what he could do last year, and he's gotten way better. Dennis Gates, what a job he's done. Jamoy Hodge, transfer from Cleveland State. He's played like a superstar recently. And then just a lot of other smaller guys. Isaiah Mosley, if they can kind of get him back. He's been a little bit iffy this year, but last year at Missouri State, he was a 50, 40, 90 guy. And then Nick Honor, he went from just like an average guard to a 3-point specialist out of nowhere. So they just have so many guys. And if one of the guys is cold, another one will step up. And that's the mentality in March, next man up. So I think that they'll get the win here. And the Mountain West rule, there's just no way that 2 teams in the Mountain West are going to win a game. So if SDSU doesn't do it, I don't think Utah State's going to do it.
Well, to be fair, I don't have SDSU doing it, but I do have Utah State doing it. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Missouri, to be honest. They did actually hold Alabama to 8 of 27 from 3-point range, which is encouraging. But then what happened? They got absolutely attacked at the rim. 20 of 30 from 2-point range. Alabama went. I think Missouri tends to struggle against teams that could space and shoot, and that's exactly what Utah State could do. Big fan of Stephen Ashworth. He's a bucket. So I'm going to take Utah State. 7-10 could go either way. But finally, the last game, Arizona against Princeton. Princeton, by the way, not your typical Ivy League team because they are actually very good on the boards. But there's nothing that blows me away with Princeton offensively. So even if Princeton could hold Arizona under their 80 to 85 point normal mark, I just don't think they score nearly enough.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So there is all of our first round picks. Like we do with every region, we are going to make our Elite Eight picks and who goes to the Final Four of that Elite Eight matchup. Ariel, let's start with you. What is your Elite Eight pick? Which team over which team to get to the Final Four?
I'm going to say Alabama beats Creighton. I know Arizona's the popular pick, but I think Creighton, they can peak at the right time. They have the guys to get hot. If they're making their shots, they can win games. And I think Arizona's guards are going to play them out of a game eventually. And I don't think it'll be before then. So I think I'm going to take Creighton in that game. But Alabama's just too good. I mean, Brandon Miller, it seems like he's getting better every game. And Mark Sears, all those other guys, they're just terrific pieces around him. So I'm going to go with Alabama over Creighton.
So for me, I also have Alabama going to the Final Four. I think they have the easiest path by far of any one seed, especially before the Sweet 16. Nothing really scares, or before the Elite Eight, excuse me. Nothing really scares me there. But I have Missouri in the Elite Eight. And the reason for this is I think they actually have a really good matchup against Arizona. I think Kobe Brown can really attack as well as Tubelis defensively. Tubelis is not a very good defender and hasn't been for in the past few games, in my opinion. And I don't think Ballo is the type to go for 30 again as the season has progressed. I think that was more of an outlier. And then for them against Creighton, for Missouri against Creighton, which is also my pick to go to the Sweet 16, I don't know, something about Creighton. I can't put my finger on it, but maybe it's Ryan Nembhard struggling over the past few games. Maybe it's their depth. Something doesn't feel right about that. I like Missouri as a potential upset bid all the way to the Elite Eight.
All right, I'm with Ariel here. Alabama over Creighton. Same reasons. Alabama went through the SEC tournament. I think they proved that all that controversy, I guess, whatever you want to call it, but the distractions, let's call it distractions, because that's what it is. And I think they've proved that they've kind of on the court been able to, for whatever, push it aside, and they've been able to just thrive, and they ran through the SEC tournament. So I think that's very key going into March. Virginia could, if they can muck up the game defensively, maybe, but they're already shorthanded to begin with. I think their shooting is just not going to keep up with it. So Virginia could make it a game, but the most likely result is they lose by 30. And I'm just being real here. So, yeah, that'll do it for today's episode, the South Region preview. Listen to our other two previews. We have yet to do the Midwest, but we've done the East and the West. We'll put out the West later today. So keep an eye out for that. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And take care.